I was sat one morning procrastinating doing work when YouTube popped up a video from Jaiden Animations. I like Jaiden's work, so I gave it a watch, and while I recommend that you go and watch it yourself to really feel the weight of the terrible world we now live in, I couldn't help but feel connected with her plight, and also thinking about my own life experiences and how I have a really low tolerance for the kind of BS that companies try and throw around now, and how I feel I might have at least some answers to her totally valid questions. So, if you'll permit me, I'd like to explain the problems and then talk you through what I've done to make my life even just a little bit better. You're welcome to follow along too, but I present them here as a hopefully helpful suggestion, not as an instruction. Well, while I can't help with the steady decline of corporate structures in favour of Enshittification to attempt to maximise short-term gains at the cost of long-term stability, I can help with some of the tech problems. As Jaiden puts it,
when was the last time you bought a new anything and had it completely set up and working within 5 minutes of unboxing it? At this point, if my Wi-Fi goes out, every electronic in my house becomes a useless block of metal because none of it works on its own anymore. Everything needs Wi-Fi, an app, an account linked to my email, a subscription service, and on top of it all, they sell all the information I hand over against my will to random other companies so they can send me stupid junk mail.
this sucks. I am particularly against subscriptions and basically refuse to buy anything or interact with anything that requires one. There's only one subscription that I personally pay for, and it's a begrudging transaction, and that's Spotify. Because I really like music, and that's basically the only way to enjoy a lot of music easily anymore. Everything else? Nah. That means, for example, using home cameras that don't need a subscription because they record locally. To be clear, Ubiquiti sent me the cameras that I use a couple of years ago, but I still happily use them. These record to my cloud key, not to the cloud, a local storage device, so no one else gets this footage but me. No one can snoop on my footage, Amazon, and I don't need to pay anything to keep these things running. For some context, these cameras do come a bit of a premium even back then compared to something like a Ring camera, but even with the extra tech that's needed to run my specific set, let's pick a worst case example and say that a couple of cameras, a PoE switch and the cloud key were £500 more than a comparable Ring kit. Ring's 24/7 recording subscription, which only records for 14 days I should add, is currently, which is another thing I hate by the way, the price just keeps creeping up year on year, is £15.99. That's £192 a year, meaning that you would need to run my camera setup for just 2.5 years to break even on the worst case pricing scenario. That's just with this setup as well. That's nearly £200 in your pocket every year. There's also plenty of other cameras that aren't this expensive, record to a microSD card in the camera itself, and don't need a subscription. The Reolink cameras that I installed at a friend's last year actually fit that bill really well. They're often cheaper than the Ring cameras and doorbells in general, record to the camera, and don't need a subscription. There are plenty of options out there, even if they are a little harder to find and sometimes a little more techy or just less polished. As for everything needing an app, yeah, I hate that too. I hate installing apps to often do very basic stuff, and while Jaiden's prime example of her cat litter box isn't something that I can help with directly, the idea that everything in your house needs Wi-Fi and if you lose internet it becomes a useless brick is. The basis for this sort of fix, if you like, is really simple. It's just using Home Assistant. Home Assistant is a free and open source home automation software that gives you a single locally controlled app and sort of system to operate all of your smart home tech. Devices don't need an internet connection to work because it's all run from a little computer in your house. That means everything from your smart lights to your smart toaster, should you have one anyway, are fully under your control and all accessible from a single app. You can take things a little further though with specific design choices, namely the devices you buy and how you set them up. Let me explain. See, most smart devices these days connect via Wi-Fi. Even if it's connecting to your local Home Assistant box, they are still dangerously close to the internet and are likely still able to phone home, which is a privacy nightmare that I can't stand. So the only smart devices I buy are the ones that don't use Wi-Fi. You have three main options for these: Zigbee, Z-Wave, or Matter over Thread. Depending on where you are in the world will depend on which one of those makes the most sense for you. For example, if you're in the USA, Z-Wave might actually be a better choice, whereas here in the UK, Zigbee is generally where it's at. Matter over Thread is newer and more devices are becoming available for it, but perhaps it's still a little in its infancy for you. Generally speaking though, the most important thing to understand is that these devices don't connect over Wi-Fi and therefore can't connect to the internet, be part of a botnet, or just need to phone home to a Chinese server just to turn your damn lights on over a device-specific app. If you do use Zigbee, that's the one that I have the most sort of experience with, you can actually connect devices to each other. For example, my Philips Hue bulbs and my Hue light controllers, if you bind the two together, the remote that controls that bulb without any extra setup, and should even keep working even if Home Assistant isn't running for whatever reason. That's pretty sweet. There are also more structural changes that you might choose to make. For example, my smart control of any built-in lights are designed to still work fine even if Home Assistant is gone completely. I use these little Zigbee relays to take input from the regular wall switches and either cut power to the smart bulbs or to just tell Home Assistant to turn the bulb on. The key thing is that if the relay can't connect to the Zigbee network, it reverts to straight power control as if it's just a dumb relay. That means even when I move out, I can just leave those here and the new owner would never know. Compare that to a Wi-Fi smart bulb that needs a special app to control, and yeah, this is way easier and more reliable. If you're interested in setting up your own smart home tech like I have a full playlist explaining everything that you need to know. I'll leave that in the cards above for you. Now, if it's alright with you, I'd like to make my own rant on this topic too, because I have some thoughts. The phrase often attributed to the steady decline of our day-to-day experience is Enshittification, where companies create platforms or services or products with great promise or incredibly cheap pricing, and then once they've captured enough market share, they realize, oh, we actually have to make money. So they start to increase the cost or decrease the quality in order to extract the most value out of you, the customer. To me, this makes absolutely no sense, because it appears to prioritize short-term gains over long-term stability and success. Why would you prioritize making a few quid extra now at the cost of having fewer customers with less money later, when instead you could build a stable foundation that customers want to keep coming back to and to give you more of their money? I don't understand this idea of requiring shareholder profits above everything else. In theory, I understand that there's some rule in the US, their law that says, the company must do what's in the shareholders' best interests. But the argument that what is best for the shareholders is short-term gains or revenue instead of long-term stability seems like a flawed reading of that rule, no matter how you look at it. As we've seen with a lot of the tech that we deal with on a daily basis, the idea of making everything harder to interact with, harder to, cancel your subscriptions and the likes, pushes people away at a faster rate then they can, get new customers. Retention is a much more important factor, at least to me anyway, than extracting every single cent possible. As an example, I built a link sharing website with a friend called Locally Links. It's a paid website where you do essentially pay as a subscription. It's only £2 a month plus the clicks that you use, but we made sure to make it so that if you do want to cancel your subscription with us, you don't want to pay us anymore, you don't need to call us, you don't need to email us, you just click a couple of buttons on the website and that's it. I hate this sort of, oh, you must call customer service to cancel. Like, no thanks. If I can sign up and you can take my money online without having to talk to someone, you can stop taking my money online without me having to talk to someone. This also feeds into the idea of disruptors. People like Uber and Lyft as a great example, who come into an industry, supposedly revolutionize it, and then Enshitify their service. I would make the argument that disruptors are not disrupting the industry, they are monopolizing it. Their sole purpose when entering an industry is not necessarily to improve the experience for the customer, it's to insert themselves in the industry using insane amounts of venture capital money to make their service or product the only one that you really will want to use, mostly just by undercutting their competitors on price and a whole lot of marketing, and then start turning the screws on everyone to claw back that VC money. Hell, someone like Spotify is actually a really great example of that. They took an industry that was already fairly easy to interact with, at least if you had an Apple device anyway, through iTunes, namely buying your songs or albums directly through iTunes, and turned it into a subscription service, which at first made a whole lot of sense. I mean, you can access like almost every song on the planet, unlimited listens, unlimited access, you can download them all, and all for just a couple quid a month? Well, that sounds great, right? But now they're basically the only service that you can access new music on, and they're now the industry standard, and well, you basically have no choice but to pay them their ever-increasing subscription fees. Disruptors don't disrupt the industry, they just monopolize it. And then there are the insane levels of data collection and ads. My god, the ads. I put a lot of effort into using as few services or products that collect data on me as possible. And even then, it's a losing battle. At least my smart home tech doesn't phone home to anyone and isn't dependent on AWS or Cloudflare being up. Oh yeah, that's another big reason to use Home Assistant. When the entire internet goes down, your lights and heating keep working. Kind of a big deal. Anyway, despite only buying locally controllable tech, self-hosting my own smart home hub, media library and ad blocker, Pi-hole, I highly recommend setting that up on your Home Assistant box by the way, I still leak a horrendous amount of data to people like Google. These systems are so intrinsic to our way of life that there isn't much of a choice really. The best that we can hope for is legislative assistance, and even that feels like an absolute pipe dream these days. Still, doing what you can to limit your exposure does help. Here's another example. I don't have a single internet-connected voice assistant in my house. There's no Alexa, no Siri, no Gemini, nothing. The only voice assistant that I have is Home Assistant Voice, which runs everything locally. The voice detection, the speech processing, the command processing, and the text-to-speech, it's all run on my NAS. Highly recommend that too. Now that I think about it, privacy is one of the main reasons that I'm so against using large language models like ChatGPT or Gemini. For like very specific tasks or questions, sure, I've used it a couple of times, but just think about how much information you'd be readily giving up to these companies. They're actively looking for a way to make money from all of this. Anyway, that's how I do things. I self-host wherever possible, pick local-only devices that are resistant to outages, and do my best to protect my privacy and personal data. I don't think what I've done is exactly extreme or all that much more effort compared to the prevailing options, but my life is measurably better for it. Hopefully hearing how I do it has given you at least some ideas for your own setup. And as I said, if you do want to dive in on exactly how I set up all of my smart home tech, there will be videos on the end cards or in the cards above for you if you want to check them out. I hope that this has been at least in some way helpful. And of course, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. How did you deal with the increasingly costly and painstaking world that we seem to live in? Let me know in the comments down below. If you want to see more videos somewhat similar to this one, mostly more tech related stuff, feel free to hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell notification icon. If you want to check out my own hardware, the open source latency testing tool and response time tools, those are available at osrtt.com, linked in the description too. And if you want to support the channel, there are a load of links in the description as well. Otherwise, like I said, check out the full Home Assistant and Smart Home Tech playlist on the end cards. Thank you very much for watching, hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you all in the next video.